Hello and good evening and welcome back. So Budget 2021, extra £1.6 billion for UK's COVID vaccination rollout. And today is mainly just going to be one of Jesse's rants. It really is, and that's going to be entirely it. So if you're not interested in such a thing, then by all means click off now, smash that dislike button, whatever you feel so inclined. Because all of this 100% could have been avoided. It really could. Now, all of us, I'm sure, have been clamouring for border control since before this channel was created. And therefore, if we listen to Taiwan, of course, instead of listening to the World Health Organization from Dr. Tedros, which was bought out from China long ago, from Ethiopia, then this all could have been avoided. And Taiwan saying, oh, there's human-to-human contract. And World Health Organization saying, no, ignore them, let's instead listen to the Chinese overlords, which are saying there is no human-to-human contract, while of course concurrently buying up all the PPE from around the world. If instead our UK government had any semblance of sense whatsoever, would have said, actually, how about we listen to somebody who knows what they're talking about because they had to deal with SARS historically. But we fucking didn't, and instead kept our borders open. So, this is something that could have been avoided 100%. Was it? No. What is the government's response? Yeah, I know that we fucked up, and we screwed you over, and we've ruined your lives for at least a year. We've put countless numbers of business out of any hopes in the future for becoming green whatsoever, putting us back in the black, if you will. Instead of us taking responsibility and suggesting that, maybe you need a new government, or maybe, best of all, it's best of no government whatsoever because nobody knows your life better than you do, we are instead going to increase your tax rates, take more of your money in order to push our own agenda. This, to me, is utterly abhorrent. I do not understand how there is any support whatsoever unless people have been brainwashed by the dogma which was being pushed by the lamestream narrative. It really is. Bear in mind, of course, this could have been avoided 100%, no doubt about it. We had reports out of Taiwan before this became a problem. This could have been avoided. Did the government decide to avoid this? Oh hell no. When did they decide to put in restrictions from overseas travel? This year? When it was far fucking too late. Almost a year too late. We all know the government is slow to respond, but the one instance of which it has a legitimate goal, which is arguable if you speak to anarchists, but the one arguable legitimate goal, which is protecting borders, it failed to do. So surely you would be expecting that the government would say, okay, we hold our hands up, we made a mistake, we failed you, we fucked over, therefore we're going to call an election, because clearly we cannot be held accountable for the actions that we have made. We have screwed you over. This is our goal for the future. If you wish to stick with us, then please do, but we understand if you wish to leave, because we have failed you 100%. But of course, that hasn't been their response at all. No, not at all. Is there any whisper or hint of another election? No, not at all. But then again, what would your options be if you've already voted for the Conservatives, giving them such a massive landslide, and the Labour having their worst loss since the 30s? What would it be? Well, you might say, what about Patriotic Alternative? Well, they're having trouble trying to fit on the election roster in and of itself. So, good luck with that. What would it be then? Abstaining? Right, in which case, of course, you're passing off your vote to somebody else. Where are they going to go? If they don't like the Conservatives, they're going to go Labour, which is going to make this problem even bloody worse with an even bigger government. So, the way that I see it, there doesn't seem to be much of an option. Unless, of course, you decide that there isn't any worthwhile government, which is a similar way to the way that Australia goes, which is to say that it is illegal to not vote. However, you do have an option to say that you have no confidence in any of the electorates put forward. In which case, fucking good. Surely that should be an option in the UK, but you understand that would never pass in law, because then it's just that turkeys voting for Christmas, and they would never allow that, because then you might be able to vote them out of power, vote them all out of power, and they would not support that in the slightest. So I retain 100% hope for any party like Patriotic Alternative to actually be able to take the reins from any failures of government, including the so-called Conservative government. A Conservative government which was running on the platform of saying we can take control of our borders and provide freedoms to the individual. And they've done completely the fucking opposite. Now Rishi Sunak is suggesting he's going to need to raise tax rates for businesses. Oh, that's good, because I'm not a business. Oh, wait. Of course, I buy things from businesses, which means the cost of things is going to go up, because the business isn't just going to be able to absorb them, because in a free market capitalist environment, they're going to be driving for the bottom price. And if you increase tax rates, that means the bottom price is going to be elevated, which is going to affect all consumers. It's a shit show from start to finish. Yes, suggesting that an increase in tax rates is going to increase tax revenue. Are you kidding me? Have you not heard of the Laffer curve? This is preposterous. That if things get more expensive to buy, then people are going to buy fewer of them. Unbelievable, I know. People don't have an increase in money, and if things get more expensive and they buy fewer things, what a revelation. I suppose at this point, all that is really left is to invest in something other than fiat currency, whether that be precious metals or cryptocurrency. They seem to be your only options. Obviously, not a financial advisor. Don't take my financial advice and instead consult your whoever. But it really does seem that way. If we are inflating the M1 money supply by such a ridiculous amount, and then suggesting that you can make it back by an increase in tax rates, that is preposterous. The Conservatives were supposed to be a party for the rich, surely. In which case, how do they make money? They make money by making most people rich, whereas Labour, of course, are a party for the poor or the working class, in which case they only profit when most of the country are poor or working class. Right, okay, then how the fuck do you equate the fact that the Conservatives are going for monumental inflation because of quantitative easing, which is a nice way of saying printing money, which destroys any savings you have because it decreases the value of the currency in sterling that you own, and then what other option is there? Well, there doesn't seem to be. And this kind of thing is only going to result in more protests, like we've seen throughout the continent of of Europe, of course, but also within the United Kingdom, even in Ireland, most notably recently, of course. That surely that has to be what they're expecting. I do understand that they are trying to control the news narrative as much as possible with banning people like Patriotic Alternative, whether that be Mark Collett or Laura Towler, taking them away from social media platforms. Okay, that isn't quite the government. However, then trying to rephrase governmental guidelines and laws in order to ban them from being able to speak or spread their message anywhere at any time, then yes, that does seem to be like a political attack. It is saying, you've abided by the laws up until now, but how about we change the laws and then punish you retroactively? It seems like this is death throes of the government. Like, they are fucking desperate, and I'm very glad to see that as the case, because they do not deserve the power that has been bestowed upon them. They are abusing that for a Conservative government to be going after hate speech laws. It is preposterous. It really is. For anybody who is right of centre and wanting individual freedom, they have been 100% let down by the government as it stands. And then saying, oh yes, but of course, as a Conservative that obviously loves individual freedom of choice, we are 100% behind demanding that you pay money to a socialised health service. It's ridiculous on the face of it, and yet they are trying to retain this facade, and I do not know how much longer it will last. I do know, of course, that with opinion polls and swaying of how people think about the NHS, that they're trying to say that it is such a popular idea. And yet, of course, if you go with any fact-based evidence logic on any of these NHS statistics, you'll see that we are falling behind other people. But instead they just go with, how do you feel about the NHS? Are you happy with it? Are you pleased with it? Do you like it? And that's what they're basing it on instead. Which reminds me of the Goebbels quote, that if you push a lie hard enough and far enough, it will eventually become the truth. That is what seems to be being done with the NHS and the Conservative government. Oh, but now there are fears with the new Brazil variant, with 3 people having it, 2 of which are known and 1 of which isn't known. And how did they get it? Oh no, that must mean we must stay locked down for further because our vaccine might not be effective, in which case we need to create a new vaccine which is going to take even longer, and therefore everybody must be locked down until then. Well, obviously not. Again, from Brazil, since you've introduced new restrictions in terms of travel, this should not be a fucking problem. It really shouldn't. You've taken over a year to get to this point when we've been clamoring about it for fucking decades. And yet you finally got there. And yet you're saying what you've done after having listened to us, after the Brexit referendum, still isn't fucking bloody enough. Well then, what are you even there for? If your one legitimate purpose is to protect the borders, and yet you're admitting to failing even fucking then, why are you there? And of course you might be saying, well, who else is there to vote for? And that's a bloody good point. Who else is there to vote for? Unless we're going to go with smaller parties that might have more point, it seems like this is just mob mentality of 3 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. It is preposterous. It is abhorrent. And there doesn't seem to be a so-called democratic way out of this if everybody that owns the news and the narrative that is being pushed is trying to fit a specific agenda. And I know that that might be very black-pilled and disheartening for a lot of you to hear. I do understand that, but I think it is more important in order to convey what is true, what is honest, instead of trying to protect what is sacrosanct based on a particular politics that is in lieu at the time, based on where the Overton window is based at this particular predicament that we seem to find ourselves based head-on towards confronting. So you might like to know what can be done about that. Well, it seems, seeing as everybody is going down the identity politics route, that you still need to join a particular group. And I'm in no way affiliated with Patriotic Alternative, but they do honestly still seem to be the best bet at trying to counter this narrative. And I do understand that they've been slandered with, like a dozen lamestream articles or legacy media articles this week trying to bat them down. But that does honestly seem to be the best route out of this that I can see. It's quite obvious at this point that you cannot trust any of the 4 main parties, whether it be Conservatives or Labour, or Liberal Democrats or Green. None of them are trustworthy. None of them can be relied upon to actually make any semblance of change. And the academic agent does mention this, of course, to try and say that the main political parties are just towing the same line and they have minor disagreements, but they can't actually be at each other's throats at all. But for me, it seems to be that's what it has come down to. So on that note, of course, I will be focusing more on BitChute from now, because I understand that YouTube will not appreciate my rhetoric for very much longer. So, if you do wish to keep up to date, everything is backed up on BitChute, so do check out that channel. But until then, as always, do let me know what you guys think down below. If you think that this is all being a bit blown out of proportion, or if you think that, no, it is actually time for a changing of the guard, given that the Conservatives have let us down every single step of the way, and breaking manifesto promises, and if this was any other contract other than government, they would have been sued and made out of business fucking ages ago. But most of all, as always, until next time, have a good one.